Achtung. Welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk with me, Al Murray, and James Holland. And this is our second. This is quite fantastic that we are again talking to the legend that is Brian Johnson, whose family history and family interest in the Second World War is basically, well, we could talk about this forever. So here we are with part two. Welcome back, Brian.
It's good to be here. It's good to still be here.
I will just paint the picture for those listening at home. We're in a beautiful townhouse in central London by the River Thames. Traffic going by the old helicopter because they have to fly over the river. And Brian is clutching a notepad with a list of questions for James Holland. In part one, if you listen to it, we covered Brian's own experience in the Territorial Parachute Regiment.
Amazing stuff.
Well, and I remember going to see my dad jump out of balloons in the early 70s. That whole thing, the bloke going, we're just going to let a gentle breeze in now, and they open the gate.
Well, do you know what? My just turned 13-year-old daughter Daisy, she is absolutely desperate to parachute. And
really?
She's seriously thinking about, she can't decide whether she wants to be a farmer or whether she wants to join the parachute regiment and become a red
Join
devil.
the parachute regiment.
Yeah. Well,
milk
that's
the
what she wants
cows later.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, and I think she might. But I've sworn solemnly that on her 16th birthday we will do a jump together. And she's wanted to do this since she's about 6, and nothing has changed in the intervening years. And now it's getting quite close. So we've only got 3 years to go.
Well, it's like me this year. I get to fly in the Spitfire.
You're finally doing it?
My wife bought it for us like 3 years ago, and every time,
Oh,
something's happened.
it's great. You're in for a
It's
treat.
amazing.
It is
you're in
amazing.
for a real treat.
I cannot wait.
Nothing.
Great.
You will not be disappointed. It's one of those things where you think, is it going to be as good as it's cracked out to be? Yes.
Last time, just important things come up. Last time it was I had to rearrange my fridge magnets. That was a hell of a dinner.
So, Brian, we covered your father joining up, going to North Africa, his abortive trip home. But where do you want to start today? You've got
it's
your
just the boys on the ground had it really bad. They were tough. They were great. I loved them and all that. But the Air Force. I think there was a man called Cunningham that you quite really thought he was the guy. And if this is true, what he did was with the aircraft he had, and let's face it, here we go again. Can we have Spitfires? No, we're going to send some
rubbish old Hurricanes.
Old Hurricanes.
Yeah.
But by the way, we fixed this big hunk on the front that'll slow them down just a bit more than that. And, because we haven't quite got... And it just went on and Blenheims, and...
Well, because Beaufighters, which obviously developed from Blenheims, were absolutely the business. I mean, they were...
Beaufighters were one of my favourite planes.
Yeah, but
Beaufighters,
the same.
Mosquitoes. My dad's favourite plane in the whole wide world in the war was the P-38.
The Lightning.
Because he was stuck in Sicily, was it? I can't remember.
There were lots of Lightnings
over
Sicily.
They were just stuck there, and they just didn't want to, they were pressed down by the Germans. And this squadron came in, and unusually, there was an old saying in the Second World War, when the Luftwaffe come over, we've all heard it, we duck. When the American Air Force come, everybody frickin' ducks. And my dad said, these guys were brilliant. They just came and strafed the shit out of this, and they saved my life. And that was his favourite. And, but the thing about the Spitfire, it just got better and better and better and better. It really, but, the one I wanted to tell you, because I know you've done a brilliant book on on the Battle of Britain and all that, but there was a plane called the Bolton Pole Defiant. Now, now the way I get the story is, right, chaps, don't put any guns on the front of it. We'll put a big fucking turret on the back with 4 guns on, and maybe we can fool them to come in. What the fuck are you talking about? It's half the speed of a 109, but don't worry about that, because they'll not know what you are. And so we'll send them to a small area. I think the first one was we'll go over to France and bomb some docks or something. I think 3 came back. I think,
the Defiance and the ferry battles, they were the two total dogs. I mean, They just
How
didn't
to
work.
pass the exams to get in?
Well, it's strange, isn't it? Because they're all Merlin engined, aren't they?
Yep.
So there's obviously someone's decided we've got this brilliant engine, and it's performing well on single engine fast fighters, and they stick it on planes that are only going to end up slower.
But every
it's a
time I
peculiar
hear
decision,
that,
the battle in
they're going,
particular.
well, there's only 10 were shot down. I think, no, that's 20 guys.
Yeah.
That's 20 men, 20 young men.
Who you trained up and spent, at least
fortune.
minimum of 9 months
Well,
training.
how
at
will
beach.
we fix this? Well, let's send another 12, shall we?
Yeah.
And off they go. And the only time they stopped using them, and there was no more pilots left, and nobody would get in them. I'm not getting in them.
I mean, those bomber crews in 1940, the battle crews in particular, just incredibly brave because it's
unbelievable.
It's just endless. It's suicide mission after suicide mission. And,
I mean, there's that
and like you
amazing-
say, how do you get these people to get in their planes?
Absolutely. And brave men are just, people say, it's LMF. Moral fibre. I would say, lucky motherfucker. That's what I would say. You can fucking, at least he's out the way,
But Brian, let me just say. I mean, you talk about the more positive thing because you're right about Cunningham. So for those who don't know, what happens is Tedder, who has been at the Air Ministry, Air Chief Marshal Rolf Tedder has been at the Air Ministry up until the middle of 1941. Then he's sent over to become Air Officer Commanding, AOC, RAF Middle East. And about a month later, I think he goes over in July 1941.
Yes.
A month later or so, early September, Air Vice Marshal Arthur Cunningham goes over. And he's had a bomber group, actually, in the UK. But he's been a fighter pilot in the First World War. He's done all sorts of pioneering routes and flying and stuff in the 1920s and 1930s. And he's Australian born. His father was a test cricketer and a complete rogue who went to prison. And they emigrated to New Zealand. And so he started being called Maori Cunningham. And then it kind of changed to Mary. And it's really funny because Mary Cunningham, as he was always known, actually quite liked the nickname. But he was this big, beefy guy with big, hairy forearms and charisma that filled a room. And he's totally macho, alpha male type, but like being called Mary. But don't hold it against him because he and Tedder got together and they realised that actually what they needed to do was completely rethink how air power can support directly ground troops. Yeah. Because in the 1930s, you've got the RAF all developing into these, what we would call a strategic air force. So you've got Bomber Command, which operates on its own. You've got Fighter Command, which operates on its own. You've got Coastal Command, all operates on its own. And they hadn't really given too much thought to how you support ground troops. So they had the Advanced Air Striking Force and things in France in 1940. But they hadn't kind of worked out any specific doctrine for it or anything like that. So it's not until that summer of 1941, autumn of 1941, when Tedder and Cunningham get together that they start to really kind of work it out. And one of the big things that they absolutely insist upon is that they decide the targets. So the army says, we'd really like you to take out that tank concentration of tanks, which is just over the other ridge, if you want. And they'll say, okay, we might do, we might not, because there might be a whole load of other targets 20 miles behind the enemy lines that need dealing with first, which is more important.
Right.
But they also organise the whole structure of it and how they operate and how they administer it. And one of the innovations that Cunningham says is my Desert Air Force, which is what he's in command of, should have its headquarters next door to 8th Army's headquarters. And everyone goes, I never thought of that before. But it's actually a really good idea. But Auchinleck doesn't do it. He says, no, I don't think that's necessary. And it's not until Montgomery takes over in the beginning of August and Alexander comes in August 1942 as commander of the Middle East that they go, okay, yeah, actually that is a really good idea. But in that intervening time, at the fall of Tobruk on June the 21st, 1942, through to the retreat to the Alamein line and the battles of that, which I think start around the kind of 4th, 5th of July, something like that. In that 2-week period, it is the Desert Air Force that saves 8th Army from annihilation. Yes. As they're streaming back, what happens is because of this new organisation of the way they sit it, they have this kind of leapfrogging system where you have lots of little landing grounds. Yep. And what happens is, Johnny in his 112 Shark Squadron takes off. All the ground crew then bugger off back to the next landing ground 10 miles further back, and when they finish hammering the Italians and the Germans, 112 Squadron then goes back to the next airfield. And what that means is you can increase your time over the combat zone, and you can just hammer the Panzer Army, Rommel's mob, all the time. And then at night, you've got bombers, you've got your Wellingtons and your your Beauforts and all the rest of it, and Mitchells. They're all coming over and hammering them as well. And it completely slows them up, and it means that 8th Army can retreat back to the Alamein line and get there and regain their balance, and they never go backwards again.
Brilliant.
Ever.
I mean, that's brilliant in the way you described it. But also in your book, you did say that the Americans didn't take a lesson from that.
Well, they do eventually.
They did eventually, but when the first battles, they got a right tatering. You know, they got a right pasting.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned that, because they should have learned, of course, innovative things like that.
Yeah.
Like the Germans would have jumped all over that. Right? This is standard order. We all do it. Every commander must pay attention. And you're right, in the early days, it was tough for us. There was different countries, different, all
but you
involved.
see them in that summer of 1942 is when they start to get their shit together.
Yeah.
That is, and it's no coincidence that is the last time they retreat. From then on, the British Army has an absolute point of never retreating.
Yeah.
Because also, retreat is costly, and it damages morale, because if you've just fought and you've lost all your mates fighting that, and then all you're going to do is pull back again.
Yeah.
It's not great. So that's another reason. But what you do see over Tunisia is suddenly Cunningham takes over as the North African Tactical Air Force commander, and his number 2 is a guy called Larry Cuter, who's an American, and he just totally gets it.
Yeah.
And he then writes the post-war United States Air Force doctrine. And that is all origin, the origin of that goes back to Mary Cunningham in the summer of 1942.
And, you're saying getting all together, the posts and all that, but you did write this great bit about this American commander, this general, and I can't bloody remember his name, who was busy digging an underground command. Friedendorf.
He was useless.
Yes, well.
He was absolutely awful.
He had about, he must have had 100 men. I mean, you couldn't just go, because this was rocky, he wanted a whole...
You couldn't make it up. Couldn't make it. He was so shit it wasn't true. But they got rid of him, and again, in Tunisia, you see Patton, you see Bradley, you see some of these Truscott, some of these, they're all coming to the fore at this time and starting to kind of get tested in battle.
Yeah, isn't it true that Napoleon did say, he said, I don't care how good or bad my generals are, just give me lucky ones.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah.
Just give me a lucky general.
But you sort of make your own luck, don't you?
Of course you do. The harder you work, the luckier you get. It's the same old thing. And, somebody told me, I'm sorry to jump from there, but it was war movies. And I know you guys...
We love talking about war movies.
Somebody said, you hate war movies. Well, lads, there's one scene in The Dam Busters that I think is the greatest scene in any war movie I've ever seen. And it's just the bit before they get in the planes. It's silent. There's no music. And just noises like doors opening. And it's tense. And it's good, and it's just, as they're getting in and they're sitting down, it's just noises like, nobody says a word. Yeah. Which is exactly probably how it would have been.
Yeah, it's brilliant. That scene in particular is brilliant. Yeah. And I think the scene right at the end, where he says, right, I'm going to go write some letters now.
Yeah.
Where the film says that's the cost, and it's really poignant, and I'd agree. I mean, I think that those moments in the Dam Busters, they're just brilliant. They're brilliantly handled.
And the friggin' music, and I know the name of the guy, and I've forgotten it again because that's what happens when you're old and deaf.
I can't remember his name.
Eric Coates wrote the Dam
Eric
Busters
Coates.
March.
Just absolutely stunning.
Well, I think everyone loves a Dam Busters.
Sorry, I jumped straight into that because
that's what we're here for. So after Sicily, your dad, did he then go into Italy?
Hold on a minute. Can I just ask one thing for you, Brian? Do you know which battalion your dad was in?
Oh, I don't.
Because I reckon if he was in Sicily, he must have been in the 6th, 8th, or 9th.
My brother Morris has his pair book,
which means he would have been in Primasoli Bridge.
Yeah. And all I know is my daughter Joanne went after he died and all that. She found all his diaries, and there was all these terrible, sad things. And it just went sent Chalky and Billy over to just check out the thing. Next day, Chalky and Billy haven't returned yet. Feel bad. Found Chalky and Billy, bullets in the back of the head. You know, and it was just, you know, didn't want and it was awful. And there's another one going, moving on tomorrow. No more Lola in the afternoon. That was good. You dirty old bugger. He must have been given Lola one, you know, on a regular basis.
That's amazing.
And it was just these lovely little, you know, he wasn't, as I say, he was not he wasn't a very loving man. He was that's not fair to say. He was loving.
He was a steer.
He was just a straight shooter. Yeah. And he just loved to, you know, just to, you know, he was proud of what his sons did and all that. And he was proud of the army and all that. I remember I had a vicious fight with him once. It was about 2 years before he died, and we were talking about something, and I said, geez, Dad, well, you were talking about Dieppe or something, and he went, oh, it was one of the greatest victories we ever had. I said, Dad, what are you talking about? I said, it was a friggin' mess. I said, it was a tragedy. It was a cock-up of monumental proportions. And he went, well, you weren't there. We did what we're supposed to do. That's the trouble with you young. And I said, no, Dad, no. It was like 6,000 Canadian dead or something like that, you know, prisoners. It was a total catastrophe. Well, bugger you and your mother thinking you weren't there. And he stormed off to the bedroom, and I just went. So the next day I said, Dad, and I got, you know, all the old footage I could find on video and interviews with Mountbatten and all of that, and he just wouldn't watch it. He just wouldn't watch it. He said, I don't want to see it. He wouldn't. Wow. He you know, he just wouldn't be turned. As far as he was told that Dieppe it wasn't a success, but it had done what it set out to do, to test the sick.
Yeah, but he would have probably, I don't want to put thoughts into it give him thoughts that I don't know are true, but I suspect what might have happened is that for him, he probably felt, okay, so Sicily, when it came, was actually pretty successful.
Yes.
And we'd learned some lessons from Dieppe, so that sacrifice wasn't for anything.
Well, yeah, but it's still an awful lot.
It was a lot, and you and I know it was a complete fiasco. But I'm thinking from his perspective, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, from Sicily, he went to he landed at Nettuno. Next to the Anzio, and we have a friend in America, Billy Kelly. He painted these
part of US Fifth Corps
paintings, and his father was in Anzio, so now we call ourselves the Sons of Anzio. It's what club of
that's
whiskey.
Like a good band name.
Yeah, at 5:30 every night, old fashioned. To drink to the.
That's fantastic.
The Sons of Anzio.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
Have you ever been there?
Oh, yes. Well, I'll never forget my dad. I said he was not a man for tears or anything, and he said, and we took him there, and he wanted to go to the graveyard at Nettuno. And so we went in, you know, as I said, my father spoke Italian to my mother all his life. There was no English spoken in our house. And he went to the guy on the gate who spoke perfect English as well. My dad just went, a private thing, corporal, and a few, you know, and he put his names, and he said, "Si, signore, you know, strada, you know, turn left, and it's number 4," and he gave him a little map, and my dad went, "Thank you," and my dad marched off, you know, and you could see he was just, you know, he's going through the stones, and me and my brother Morris were going, oh, you know, we're really feeling this, and he stopped, you know, and turned, still get choked up thinking about it, and he bowed his head, and he wouldn't move. And these were his pals. These were his pals that got killed there. And he marched back and he said, "I need a whiskey." And I said, "Good friends, Dad." And he went, "Good men." That's all he said. And marched past. And I just went, God, no, but you see, I can't even share that, because we would never get anything, the feeling like that, you know. And what makes me sick these days when people are, they're warriors. You know, he's a milkman, isn't he? Yeah, I know, but he delivered the milk through the COVID thing. He's a warrior. Yeah, fuck off. it's so easily used.
Yeah,
you know, those lads, you know, we don't even know because half of them won't tell you. If you see an interview on television, I'm sure, James, you've done some of them with these old lads who probably haven't talked about it all their life, but they're now in their 80s or early 90s, and they want to, one last time, please tell us what happened. And you see and you watch them and they're talking, and, you know, they all know the heroes died. You know, the ones that died were the heroes. They just were lucky enough to... That's what they think. Yeah. And then at the end of these things, you'll always just see the eyes. You know, when they think back to them young faces that were just the pals back then, and they were just snuffed out just like that.
The thing I always think is when I was 19, I was off to uni, I was... chasing girls, crashing my dad's new car,
utterly feckless.
You know, totally feckless. Good for nothing, really, and never had any of those kind of demands made of me. And that's the other thing when you see these old boys and you think, God, I had it easy. And how lucky am I to have
completely
not had to experience any of that.
I mean, I remember last year at the D-Day 75th, and it was there at Bio at the cemetery. We'd done all the kind of the chit chat and stuff, and all the crowds were dispersing and stuff. And I went into the cemetery, and there was an old guy, and I got hailed by the guy who's pushing the wheelchair, and we got chatting. And the old guy with his medals and everything, and he said, "So I've just found a grave of a mate of mine, lad who," he said, "I haven't seen it since, you know, I'd never seen it before, but this lad," he said, he was only 20 years old, and he said, "I remember it really, really well what happened because he said it was in Normandy, and he just suddenly, we'd been mortared and mortared and mortared. He said the mortars are just coming over, and he just lost it, and he stood up and he yelled at the Germans and ran towards them, and they cut him down. He said he just had enough." God. And then we got chatting, and he said, "I'm going to be 100 in November." And I said, "Well, congratulations." I said, "You know, you look amazing for it, and I hope you make it all right," and all the rest of it. And then it was this weird silence where I knew we were all, everyone there was like four of us, we were all, including this old boy, we were all thinking the same thing. He'd had an extra 75 years.
I know. It's wonderful. I mean, that these guys got through, but it's sad, you know.
Oh, it's awful.
It never leaves them.
I felt really choked. I really did. I kind of wander off.
It never leaves them all their life, you know, through their young life, you know, having their babies and getting them nights where they sit in the cot, but they're just not as demonstrative as today's people, you know. But most soldiers, even the soldiers in the army today, I know a lot of the guys, a lot of them special forces and things, and they're just very, very, you know, pretty secretive or quiet about what they do, because they don't want to brag about the fact that, you know, they're going to be, you know, defending us, and sometimes it takes dirty shit to do it, you know. Peace isn't cheap.
Yeah.
Nope. So we've got to get these boys to go out and do it for us, you know.
Okay, we're going to take a break now. We'll see you in a tick.
Hello, it's James Holland here, and on the very odd chance you've missed it, I've got a new book out, Sicily 43, about the epic 38-day battle that raged in July and August 1943. It's a story that involves breathtaking action at sea, in the air, and on land. Its conquest involved airborne operations, daring raids by special forces, the harnessing of the mafia, attacks across mosquito-infested plains, assaults up almost sheer faces of rock and scrub, and featured an astonishing array of highly colourful characters, and all to a backdrop of relentless heat, dust, mosquitoes, and truly brutal terrain. There's a special edition with extra content at waterstones.com, but you can also get it at Amazon, an array of supermarkets, or any of those wonderful independents that are dotted around the country. Thank you for listening, and grazie mille.
Now, Brian, you've alluded to it several times. Your dad speaking Italian, only Italian spoken in your house. So is this, how on earth did that happen? Is it?
Well, it's
not Lola in the afternoon, is it? Someone else.
Lola in the afternoon. Lola, he was fucking good. It could have been. No, but my mother fell in love with Esther Maria Ottavia De Luca.
Amazing.
And she was engaged to a veterinary surgeon that the whole family, of this, were veterinary surgeons. They knew doctors, they had drugstores, chemist shops, if we call them, and they had all the horses from the Italian Olympic teams, dressage, show jumping, and it was all, the whole Castilla Rosita is a big walled compound. There's peacocks in there to this day. And all the daughters who get married, they don't go anywhere. They just build a house in the compound. It's like frickin' Kennedy's. And my mom had the temerity to fall in love, with an English soldier. And all her sisters was, an English soldier, but they look like shite. They look like a bag of tatties, the uniforms. They didn't say that. They said in Italian, it sounds better.
Everything does.
And so, they said, well, man, American, look at him, American, they're fucking smart as a butcher's dog. Now, he's lovely.
And they have better teeth.
Yeah, they've got better teeth, they're tanned, they're tall, and they've got some coin. But she did look, there's something about me dad that she kept going in. And they got married in Italy, in, was it Umbria?
Yeah.
It was funny because the story was, my dad was Church of England. And of course, my mom was very, very Catholic. How could you not be? And my dad said, okay, I'll turn Catholic for you. So my old man goes to these lessons with the priest, when they're going, the teacher, and Christ come off the cross, had a fag, and then went back up again, because he was, and then he had a cup of tea, and all of this. So you learn all his history, and somebody speared him for not having enough fags to go around, whatever, and so, and he learned, and he went to the church that day, and he was, my ma's family were there, and they were going, I said, and my dad had to kneel down in the thing, and he was just waiting, the priest, and the padre walked in, the captain. He went, Johnson! Screamed down this church, and my old mum went, attention! And because my old mum, was just, this guy just walked up. He said, how dare you steal one of my flock? My old man said, your flock? He said, I haven't seen ye since North Africa. You just pop up here. And of course, and then the two of them went at it. The priest said, and my dad looked at him and he said, God, my arse, and just walked out. And he said to me, Mark, come on, get out of here. And they ran away. And I got married the other side. It was full wedding dress and everything.
How amazing.
Incredible.
That's so romantic.
Yeah, but even at the end when he was dying, my old man, this vicar come into the room and he's going, would you like to give me a few words? And my old man, he couldn't talk because he had a stroke. He was going, no. And we had a system, 1 squeeze for yes, 2 squeeze for no. He nearly broke my friggin' hand. And I said, I think you better leave now. Because my old man, after being through the war, he knew there was no God. He just knew. And he just went, son, was skin and bone. Flesh and bone. He'd say that all through his life, we're flesh and bone. And that's it. End of story. If you want to believe something else, that's up to you. But keep it to yourself.
Wow.
And he was he was one of them men. He was a man of few words, but
made him count.
He was just. I wish I could remember my story, but he's just a lovely man. I miss him.
Yeah.
But
But what about your mum?
Me mum,
your mama.
Oh, she was great. She came over and she just didn't know what to do over here. But me mum's story is fascinating. Me mum used to sit us. We say, Mum, what was it like in Italy? And it wasn't it great? She went, oh, it was a very good, son, because your grandfather, my grandfather, was called Achilles. That was his name, Achilles, and he grew. He had olive oil and wine things and stuff like that. That was his deal. He wasn't of the family, but anyway, my mother used to sit and go, he died very young because of the pneumonia. He had the pneumonia. But before he died, he looked at me and he was saying, "You are my little twinkle star in the sky." And I began, "Oh, Ma, look at you." And she went, "That's good." So, 3 years ago, we're going on, and there's a big family reunion, which I couldn't get to. I think I was rearranging my frigid magnets again. And Andrea, one of the cousins, came up to my eldest daughter and said, "Joanne, I have to tell you something. We've been lying to you all these years." And Joanne's going, "What? About Esterina's father, my great-grandfather." He said, it's the 3 boys in the family, my mum's brothers, were all fascisti, black shirts. I mean, they thought Mussolini was the greatest thing, anywhere. And a lot of people did. And they were real fascisti, and now carried these teeny little pistols, with a black thing and all of that.
And the fancy uniforms.
Achille had gone to America to make his fortune with his olive oil and his things. It didn't happen. He came back embittered and a bit of a drunk, and he started beating his wife, Nonna, and the sons had warned him, and they said, "Don't do this again," because and then one day, the youngest one came in, and he was just doing this, and he walked up and just shot him in the back of the head, killed him dead. That's the truth of the thing. So,
wow.
Dear God.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I know. Then at the end of the night, later on, about 2 or 3 hours later, a black car came with 3 fascisti black shirts in it. Got him, said, "Get your bag, get whatever you got." Took him down to the docks, put him on a ship, and they sailed him to South Africa. And I think he died in 1972. And Andrea, his daughter, just said, we have to tell you. It's just, Whoa. And she started crying, and my daughter again, fucking wow. Yeah. I mean, talk about a bombshell. But, that was before the war. Obviously, that was before the war. But during the war, that compound was, Mom went down and worked as a stenographer in the German headquarters.
Yeah,
and she took,
because that's where the Customs headquarters was in that Frascati area.
Yeah, and so she would get any little bits of information and pass it on to the underground and all that.
No,
but her farm under the chicken run, unbeknownst to the brothers, this was the women who did it. There was a hide where they'd put all the downed, the underground would bring all the downed pilots and hide them under there for a couple of days. And then from there, they would march them either up to Switzerland, to get out of Turin. And it was a fast. I was going, "Geez, Ma, you guys were busy, weren't you?" And she said, "Oh, it was fun. There's some very nice pilots. Very nice. Englishmen are very polite. Very polite.
Wow.
And so, all these lovely stories that you grew with, that, you just went, bollocks, I mean, but the more information from the cousins is, because we're still in touch, a very close family, and it's, and it happened, to them it was nothing, because Italy was just still a kind of fun place. People were just, the Germans, right, who gives a shit,
Yeah.
Just, they're still going to eat with pasta. The restaurants were still full,
Well, that was the big beef of the Germans, that the Italians were constantly saying, "Oh, we need this, we haven't got enough of that, we haven't got this." But every time they went to Rome, everyone was having an absolute party. The Frascati was the least of it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was beautiful. And, of course, up there as well, the Wallace and Simpson lived in Frascati, too.
Did they?
Absolutely. They had a beautiful house there, just down from the family house. Beautiful, stunning place. That's where they were.
I didn't know that. Oh,
yep.
Wow.
But I mean, when I was doing when I did my book on Italy a while ago.
Hang on, James. I think I got a double 18 there.
I just remember talking to partisans one day, former partisans, and then you'd be talking to former fascists the next day.
Yep.
And what was amazing about them was they were exactly the same. They're all they'd laugh their heads off, moan, start gesticulating wildly. Both of them all very charming, all very hospitable. You just felt they were. In many ways, sort of a lot of the differences probably. I mean, they were seen quite great at the time, but was it not that?
But the Italian prisoners themselves couldn't be bothered. No. Well, I thought this war would last maybe a couple of weeks, but bollocks to this. I'm missing me food.
Yeah.
And then the Germans treated them, with pretty much contempt and all of that, which, and they went out in some, a bit like the British, in some nasty, aeromacchi, some of them aircraft, they were pretty dodgy. Well, they weren't dodgy, they were fantastic in 1933, when they first went out there, but as the years went on, governments get lazy and no, you've got some, but we need new ones. We'll see what we've got, It's the way of the world, isn't it?
Yeah. And the Italians were broke.
They were broke before it all started. That's the truth of it. And they had quite a modern army if you're taking on the Abyssinians, but they haven't got a modern army if you're taking on the Brits. And
you told me, you didn't tell me. I read it in your book. Now that I've met you, listen to me. Oh, yeah, James told me once. No, but
I know how you feel.
The general, the Italian general who said to Mussolini, hey, listen, was he Graziani or?
Graziani, yeah. Rodolfo.
Yeah, there's just nothing. We're kind of and here was this man. He was almost Trump-like, wasn't he? El Duce.
Oh, but very similar. Yeah.
We got in fact the two of them. Are very erratic. He kept changing his mind. We're not going. Well, we're going. Am I going to be left behind by the Allies?
And also just
by the Germans, because I need a bit of this as well. Yeah. And all he got was basically, the slag heap. Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We went into there. The Germans were taking this land with, fabulous, oil and all of this kind of shit. I'm sure the Afghans have got oil somewhere. Just haven't friggin' found it yet. Am I getting political?
Only a little, but it's fine.
Well, that's all right.
We can cope with that. So Brian, your dad. When were they married? In 1945. So once the war had ended, or
yes, at the end of, I think was it 45 or early 46? I think it was 45. Yeah, the end of 40.
So he was part of the sort of post-war reconstruction effort. You said earlier on.
Yes, he was, and I remember one of his pals at Dunstan Social Club said, it was if you did stay on. You got. I think you got a little bit extra money as well because everybody wanted to get home. Everybody after 4 just send me home. But my dad liked Italy, and it was all shit. The food was nicey, but there wasn't much there. But Rome was in a mess. It was. The Germans did leave it, pretty much, without. When I forgot the name of the general who was in charge of him, but he did disobey orders when they said, right, level it. He went, I'm not putting my name down to that, level in the greatest city in the world. But the food and the supplies and everything, it had all broken down. And the German army was still holding out, I mean, we never defeated those boys, did we? Further up in Italy.
Well, no, they did. They did completely surrender. They did completely surrender on the 2nd of May. It was the first big surrender of all. But I mean, the interesting thing about that is the surrender. The first unconditional surrender of German armies was on the 2nd of May in Italy. But you suddenly got 250,000 German troops still armed, and you've got the 85th US Infantry Division coming up. So it's like 15,000 men.
Yeah.
With all these Germans, and they haven't laid down their weapons, and it's all a bit tense.
Well, that's what I'd heard. I just heard that it was some areas. I mean, they had 30,000 troops in Norway that never really surrendered. Didn't it? Am I correct there?
No, they do surrender, but they
they send the remnants of 1st Airborne to to wind down. So what's left of the division from Arnhem?
There's a kind of
to Norway to wind down the German army in Norway, and then 2nd Independent Parachute Brigade, they go to Greece and deal with and send all their airborne people around, all over. But yeah, I mean Spike Milligan stayed in Italy at the same time as your father, and then spent 2 years entertaining the troops in the trio he was in, and his books are all about. I like the weather. I don't really want to go home compared to here. No. I've got a job, and the food's nice, and the girls. And his book Goodbye Soldier is all about how he falls in love with an Italian woman.
That's right,
and wants to stay for her.
And he goes for dinner with her.
That's
in
right.
This rooftop restaurant, and he walks and he's gone, and the roses and the wine and the air, and then in came fucking
Maria, she's called.
No. Sally, Sally, pride of a... He's going, oh, God, she's not going to sing, is she? What's her name again?
Gracie Fields.
Gracie Fields.
He really hates Gracie Fields.
He went, oh, Gracie Fields, oh, God, please don't let her sing, please. Because everybody's going, Gracie, we love you. And I don't know if she did or not. And he said he just wanted to look at this lovely woman. And he just looked at this woman. I mean, that's awful to say that, but that was, what she was famous for,
Yeah.
And but he was, he was a very funny man, and another hero, a brave man. He got all kinds of shit. His ears, he fell off, and he'd had a great one with Harry Seacombe. When they were getting into this gun, the field gun, had fallen off a cliff, and he went, oh, fuck, and he ran down to get the cliff. And Harry Seacombe was one of the soldiers at the bottom, and he said, did you see a gun fall down here? And Harry Seacombe said, what colour was it? And it's beautiful stuff. And that's when he said, I'll have it. He's brilliant. I like that. What colour was it?
That's brilliant.
It's brilliant. So, these friendships and things that started out of this carnage, it was just wonderful,
Well, Brian, I think we could talk about this literally forever. But I feel like we've taken up a great deal of your precious time. Thank you so much. Have you got anything else you want to ask James?
No. I'm just going to say that we're next door to do great Scotch eggs and the cheesy leek pies. They make you want to slap your mother.
Now you're talking. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and a huge thank you to Brian Johnson for inviting us into his home.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks,
to
Brian.
We have way special.
Guys, it's a real honour to have you. I've enjoyed your podcast, and to be part of it is just a dream come true.
Well, I grew up on your music, so it's,
likewise.
So what a privilege. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheerio. Goodbye.
Cheerio.
Cheerio, guys.